House Speaker Paul Ryan still withholding his endorsement of Donald Trump despite their meeting today. Here to discuss all of this is Michael Reagan, son of President Ronald Reagan, the author of Lessons My Father Taught Me, and Dennis Prager, nationally syndicated talk show host. How you guys doing?
Doing
Great.
well.
Thanks for having us.
It's great to have you on. Dennis, I want to play again what Paul Ryan said coming out of today's big meeting.
Okay.
This is our first meeting. I was very encouraged with this meeting, but this is a process. It takes a little time. You don't put it together in 45 minutes.
So still no endorsement from Paul Ryan. Can Trump and Ryan put their differences behind them and resolve this, you think, Dennis?
I do, actually, and I think Paul Ryan is handling it with a lot of dignity. Had he, after all of the critiques of Trump, said, okay, we're on the bandwagon, I think people would not have taken him seriously. He has to worry about hundreds of congressmen and their re-election ability, and he has to worry about his own credibility. I think he's handling it with a lot of dignity, and I salute him.
So, Michael, if your father, Ronald Reagan, were in this kind of situation, if he saw a Republican Party standard bearer who, may not share his particular principles, how do you think he would handle it?
Well, I think there's a big difference between somebody who doesn't, share his principles and Donald Trump. I think there's a big difference. I think my father always did support the nominee of the party, but I think in this case, right now, he really would have to sit back and really, truly think about Donald Trump, and it would be up to Donald Trump to bridge that gap between himself and Ronald Reagan, or himself and Paul Ryan, himself and Lindsey Graham, himself and the Bushes, himself and those who are going to vote in November. It's not incumbent upon anybody else. It's incumbent upon Donald Trump to make those inroads to bring people together for November.
When you say there are
it
big differences between your dad and Donald Trump, what are those differences?
Well, my father wasn't demeaning. He paid attention to the 11th commandment. Don't speak ill of another Republican. He didn't demean people because he knew at the end of the day he had to bring those people on board to win a national election in November. By demeaning them, it's very hard not only to get them on board, but also to get their supporters on board. You can't say lying Ted on a regular basis and then go to his supporters and say, please come and vote for me in November, unless you've done something to reach out and do a mea culpa with those, in fact, who voted for Ted Cruz.
Yeah, I've read something interesting that you told our producers. I think you said, the question is, what would your father do in this position? You said, what would make you think that my father would even want to be in this position?
Well, yeah, I mean, really, somebody said, wish you had your father back. I said, what would make you think he would come back? I mean, there's people out there who talk about my father and Donald Trump and say that Donald Trump's just like Ronald Reagan. Well, the truth is, if Ronald Reagan were like Donald Trump, Nancy never would have married him.
Dennis, time is of the essence here. How much time do you think Republicans have to pull all of this together?
Oh, they have the time. There's no question. This is just May. The election, of course, is in November. I think, in fact, believe it or not, I think they will. Look, I'm a perfect example. I have devoted the last half year in print, at National Review and elsewhere, in print and on my national radio show, to criticizing, quite severely, to criticizing Donald Trump. However, I did say at the beginning, if, God forbid, I don't know if I used God forbid, but if he is the nominee, I will vote for him. I said it in my first article, and I am sticking to that because, from my perspective, the Democratic Party has done a lot of damage to my beloved country, and I cannot really abide by the idea of having another 4 years of having the Supreme Court set. And the reason is not just that I disagree, obviously, because I'm conservative and I don't agree with folks on the left. It's not just that. It's that they use the court in lieu of Congress. That for the left, if you can't pass a law, you use judges to pass the law. And that's a very disturbing thing. It has made the Supreme Court far stronger than the founders envisioned it.
Do you agree with that, Michael?
No, I really don't agree with that at all. As I said, it's really up to Donald Trump to get everybody on board. Now, Dennis is on board because he's a conservative, he's a Republican. But Donald Trump hasn't proven himself to be a conservative, and he just really came into the Republican ranks. And you can't really trust the fact he's going to pick the right judges to go on the Supreme Court, because every day he seems to change his message just a little bit more depending on who he talks about and who he speaks about. So he's got a lot of work to do to, in fact, bring other people such as myself and others on board. But I'm not appreciative of all of a man who demeans people like John McCain, who demeans others on the campaign trail, and people applaud that kind of demeaning. I don't
you're not
think
gonna
that's
vote for
right
him?
at all.
Well, Don, let me just say.
Let him
Michael-
answer. So you're
Mike-
not going to vote
okay,
for it,
sure.
Michael?
No, I'm not saying I'm not going to vote for him, but at this point, if the election were held today, I'd be voting down ballot, not up ballot.
Okay.
Let me just say the irony is Michael doesn't agree with me, but I agree with every word that Michael said. I do believe, and I said it to you when I was last on with you, I do believe that it is up to Donald Trump to make the overtures. I couldn't agree more. And the despicable things he said about John McCain and others remain despicable.
Yeah.
I'm not happy about it, but this in life, very rarely do we have the choice between good and evil. We generally have it between lessers of evil. I'm not.
You said that the other
comparing
night when
anyone to
you said that the other night when you
That's
came
right.
on. It sounds like a shotgun wedding to me between you two. So if
Well, if I could say something, Don, get
Yeah,
in
go
there.
ahead.
I mean, where are the signs that say Hispanics for Donald Trump? Where are the signs women for Donald Trump? I mean, these are the areas he is so weak in this country that we live in today. You got 75% of the women are against him. I'm sure more than 100% of Hispanics are not going to vote for him on election day. How is he going to make inroads into those areas, and how's the Democrat Party going to deal with Donald Trump is another way?
All right, hold that thought, Dennis, because I know you want to respond to that. Gentlemen, please stay with me when we come back. If Trump, if he's winning with voters, why should he change his, to suit party leaders now? We're going to talk about that next. Both sides say they want unity, but should Donald Trump change to suit the GOP, or should they change to suit him? Back with me now is Michael Reagan and Dennis Prager. Let's see if I can say this more succinctly, Michael, than I did going into the break. The whole idea behind Donald Trump's campaign is to let Trump be Trump, and it's a winning formula for him now, so why should he change his tone?
Well, he probably won't change his tone at all, but he needs to do something to bring people together. I don't know if the Republican National Party wants to be a party of saying we're going to pick up 11.5 million illegals and ship them out of the United States of America. They were going to be the party that's going to stop Muslims from coming into the United States of America. I don't know if the Republican Party, that's the change they in fact want to make. And I think that's part of what Paul Ryan is considering at this point in time. Who is the Republican Party? I tweeted out, as you know, a couple of weeks ago, I said, the Republican Party is no longer the party of Reagan. It is the party of Trump. Good luck.
So, Dennis, to Michael's point before the break, how is he going to make inroads with women? How is he going to make inroads with Latinos? And now he's saying the Republican Party should not be the party of people who are trying to stop illegal immigrants from coming into the country, or stop immigrants, I should say, from coming into the country, whether they be Hispanic
Right.
or Muslim.
Okay, well, to begin with women, I think he has a number of very powerful arguments, not least of which is you've had a Democratic president and for part of the time a Democratic Congress. Do you think it's gone better for you? They are using you, just as in my belief, they have used minorities for all of my lifetime. They use people in order to gain votes, saying how much they're on their side, and that anyone who opposes them, meaning any conservative or Republican, is what I call six herbs: sexist, intolerant, xenophobic, homophobic, Islamophobic, racist, and bigoted. That is the entire lexicon of the left. Paul Krugman at the New York Times wrote, I figured out the real support for Donald Trump is racist. Well, the fact is, I'm sure he will get more black votes than Mitt Romney got. And his appeal to women will be very simple. What is a more important issue for you than the security of the United States? Do you really believe that Hillary Clinton, who was prepared to compromise the security of her country for the sake of her foundation, for money, is going to protect this country like Donald Trump will? I think he'll make tremendous inroads with women.
But
He may
Dennis,
very well do that. He may very well do that, but it comes down, I have a 33-year-old daughter, Ashley Marie, and we talk about this on a regular basis, and like Ashley says, you know, her group of people, her 33-year-old, 34, 35-year-olds, vote for someone who is relatable and likable. And whoever's going to be the most relatable and likable is probably going to win the vote. They're not going to intellectualize it like Dennis does in a wonderful, wonderful way. They're going to go to the polls and say, you know, I relate to that person, and that's the person I'm going to vote for.
Well, that is it. You may well be right, Michael, and if that's the case, there's very little hope for the United States of America. This is a perfect example of amusing ourselves to death. The brilliant book that was written in the 1980s, where everything has become entertainment. 100 years ago, Americans didn't vote for who was likable. If you watch the Nixon-Kennedy debate, the issue was issues. But now with television, likability, who would you like to have a beer with? That's why I figured I could never run. I don't think people want to have a beer with me. I don't even drink beer. If that's what your daughter's criterion is, and it may well be, that's really sad.
It's not her criteria, but she's talking about her generation.
Okay,
that
yes.
is, in fact,
all right,
out there, what
forget
they're
your daughter.
looking at. And what you have in Donald Trump is you have the first nominee of talk radio and social media. That's what you've got. And that's where these kids live and what have you. So, you know, a lot is given to them through all of these different arenas anymore. And I don't know if that's the best thing for America.
We've heard this like to have a beer thing since Ronald Reagan. We heard it with, you know, Democratic presidents. We've heard it with Republican presidents. We heard it.
I had
with
a beer
Bill
with
Clinton.
Ronald Reagan.
We heard it with George W. Bush. But listen, Dennis, I have to push back a little bit because you said this is, you know, sort of the talking point of the left by calling out Donald Trump, saying that he is somehow xenophobic, that he is racist in some way. There are people on the right who say the same things. And there are people on the right who say similar things, maybe, you know, not as far. Even the Speaker of the House said, we are an open party. We don't talk about keeping people out. America is inclusive. So it's not just a talking point on the left.
Right. Well, that would be sad. I mean, the idea that the United States of America is allowed to have borders doesn't make you xenophobic. It's an odd correlation. We are allowed to have borders. We should have borders. Mexico has far more stringent borders with Guatemala than we have with Mexico. Is Mexico xenophobic? I find that charge unacceptable.
You want to respond to that, Michael? Do you agree? No?
Well, I mean, we do need borders. Nobody's arguing you don't need borders. We got laws. We should abide by our laws. But you're not going to be able to pick up 11.5 million people and ship them out because those people have families. They're out there. They're now married into families. There's children being born, and what have you. So, you know, to take that stand and have people applaud that stand like it's going to happen. Do we need an immigration policy? Yes, we need a coherent immigration policy, and we need to pass that. But the immigration policy shouldn't be, hey, are you Hispanic? Are you illegal? We're going to ship you to a country that you may never have ever lived in. I will tell you this about my father. He would have pulled people into the Oval Office. And he would have sat people down and said, okay, where are the areas we agree on immigration? Should we really send people home that were children brought here by their parents? Are we going to hold them accountable for the sin of the parent? I think my dad would come down on the side of the child, maybe not the parent, but he would come down on the side of the child and find a way to take care of the birthers.
Dennis, last word.
I think that Michael's father would have supported the idea of some barrier to protect the United States of America. I agree about the shipping, and it's irresponsible statements, and I agree, and it won't happen. It's a non-issue. But the idea of a barrier, a wall, whatever you wish to call it, look at how effective Israel has been building a barrier and how it reduced terrorism to almost zero as a result of it.
Israel's not the size of America, though, and you have to deal
all right,
with...
well, then that's... all right, so that's a logistics issue, not a principle issue.
If you're going to compare something, though, there should be an equal comparison, especially if you're talking about geography and the topography to actually build a wall. But that's a conversation for another time. Thank you, gentlemen.
Next time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.